Welcome to our panel session on the banking revolution. My name's Dave Gardner. I'm a partner in the technology team at TLT, and I'm delighted to be joined by a very distinguished panel of guests this afternoon. A lot of the topics we'll pick up will follow on from Marcos's presentation, which I thought was really interesting. And I was reflecting before the beginning of this session about the fact that I, and probably most of the co-speakers as well, have been speaking about disruption in financial services for many years. And looking at the last 6 months, I think it's fair to say we've seen the pace of change accelerate rather dramatically. In the past, things would take years, and in the last 6 months, changes have been happening at a pace of days and weeks. In many cases, that's been acceleration of trends that we've seen that have been happening in slower time for a long time. So, for example, in the month of March, we saw that 6 million new customers downloaded their bank's app for accessing banking services. We also saw that ATM withdrawals in the UK fell by 50%. Now, more people have been downloading their apps for a long time. People have been using less cash for a long time. But that kind of pace of change is absolutely incredible compared to the rate we'd seen previously. And whilst COVID has presented a huge number of challenges, actually, what's interesting about this from a financial services perspective and a fintech perspective is the opportunity it presents for dynamic businesses and for innovative organisations who can actually take advantage of new ways to work, new ways to communicate with customers. So, as I say, I'm delighted to be joined by a perfect panel of speakers to discuss these issues, and I'll just hand over to each of them and ask them to introduce themselves. First of all, Rachel Eyre joins us on the line, and I can see her there. Hi, Rachel. Do you want to just say hello and introduce yourself briefly?
Thanks, Dave. Hi, I'm Rachel. I'm the Business Development Manager at Midas, Manchester's inward investment agency. So it's our role to promote Manchester as a destination to attract new investment and to also support the growth of existing companies in the region. And my particular focus is around the fintech sector.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And at short notice, we're also joined by Ali O'Reilly from Virgin Money. Thank you very much, Ali, for joining us this afternoon. Would you like to say hello as well?
No worries. Thanks, Dave. Hi, everyone. I'm Ali O'Reilly from Virgin Money. I head up the sponsorship and partnership team at Virgin Money with a particular focus at looking at how we can use music as a kind of new proposition to support our brand strategy and provide amazing experiences for our customers.
Great stuff. And our final panelist who's on the line, we have Anthony Morrow, who you've just heard from. And Anthony, would you like to say hello as well and briefly introduce yourself?
Yes, thanks, Dave. I'm Anthony Morrow, and seen from that recent video with some imposter from what feels like another video. I'm founder of Open Money, which is a business created to help people make the most out of their finances, and to do that we use a lot of technology, in particular open banking and open finance technologies.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, joining me live in the studio, we have Winston Pearson from Access Pay.
Thank you. I'm Winston Pearson, product manager at Access Pay. At Access Pay, we provide cloud-based payments and cash management solutions for corporate businesses.
Fantastic. So recent times have seen there's been massive catalysts for innovation before the COVID crisis and certainly during it. And what that's really brought into very sharp focus is the need to focus on what customers want, how their needs are changing, and also how financial service providers can differentiate themselves from others in the market using technology and using other ways to get in touch and to make an impact on your customer experience. So I thought I'd start by asking Ali if you could talk a bit about Virgin Money and what you've been doing to use music to deliver something a bit different to banking customers.
Yeah, absolutely. So to give a bit of context, at the back end of last year, we did a big piece of strategic work looking at really the themes and areas that really resonated with our existing customer base and also the customers that we want to be speaking to moving forward. And music came out really strongly as an area that we should focus on. I think naturally it feels very authentic for us as a Virgin brand. It obviously plays back to our heritage. The Virgin brand was born out of Virgin Records. and it felt like a real differentiator for us. No other bank in the market has the same history and association with music as we do. So it felt like a kind of perfect place for us to operate in. We also really wanted to look at how we engage with our customers in a more lifestyle environment. So feeling more like a lifestyle brand than a bank, and music felt like the kind of perfect area for us to use to do that. So I think after identifying that music was the route that we wanted to go down, it was quickly looking at what partners and platforms that we wanted to work with to help us kind of bring that music journey to life and be able to provide our customers with something that was totally unique and totally different to what other financial service companies were doing. We had grand plans, as I'm sure everyone did, to execute a lot of different things this year. And we'd agreed to new sponsorships with the O2 and the Hydro back in February, with some amazing assets to give to our customers. But obviously quite quickly after announcing those partnerships, COVID hit, and we had to kind of reassess and slightly go back to the drawing board. Sure. We knew that we weren't going to move away from music, but it was how we can bring that to life for our customers in the new world that we were all living in. And we looked to do that predominantly through social and digital. What we wanted to say really was, what are people doing at home? How can we enhance their experiences? What can we tap into to give them a bit more kind of, I guess, of a lifestyle content feel from us? And that's where kind of the music element really kicked in. We launched an Emerging Stars program, which is focused on supporting and backing the best of up and coming British musicians. So being able to provide our customers and consumers with engaging content, exclusive interviews with our artists, and much more. Live performance revenue is one of the biggest casualties of COVID-19. So for us to be able to set up a program to support artists throughout this period was really important for us, and it was something that was really gratefully received by artists and also our customers alike. We had a fantastic response. It was then more recently, as we moved through the summer, that a really exciting opportunity came up around the world's first socially distanced music venue. And last week, hopefully, some of you will have seen that we launched the Virgin Money Unity Arena in Newcastle, which has got off to a huge success. And I think this is the perfect showcase of how we've been able to provide our customers with access to something that is totally unique. The venue opened with 2 sold-out Sam Fender shows last week. We were able to provide our customers with a VIP experience at these gigs, obviously operating in a completely safe environment, and many more to come over the next month. I think finally, really for us, it's looking at creative and innovative ways that we can bring music to life and use it as a tool to make our customers feel proud and excited to bank with us. And hopefully when the time comes and we can start moving back to indoor events in a safe manner, we also have a huge store network across the country, and we have big ambitions around bank by day, music venue by night. So I think hopefully as we transition out of the pandemic, there's lots more for us to deliver on from a music point of view. But what we've seen this year so far is it's really landing, it's resonating, and it's providing a huge differentiator for us in the market.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. I think that's a really interesting set of examples of making sure you're improving customer experience, providing something a bit different, and actually reacting in what's been a very disrupted and disruptive environment to provide your services in a slightly different way and make that offer available even in a socially distanced and a remote context, which would have seemed perhaps impossible, inconceivable before this crisis began. But it's something where across the industry, I think we've seen quite rapid development of new products, new services, new offerings, and rapid product development has always been a theme in fintech and in progressive financial institutions. But I think the pace has picked up even more at a time when the businesses trying to do that innovation themselves are suffering quite significant disruption and trying to deal with working from home. And I was going to turn to Winston at this point and ask in that context about Access Pay's cash management product launch, which you were heavily involved in and which took place right in the teeth of the lockdown.
Yeah, definitely. So Access Pay primarily have always been known as a cloud-based payments business. And more recently, in the last few years, we went into cash management, and that cash management offering was really for the larger corporates, where some of our smaller businesses who use our payment solutions couldn't really get the benefit, whether that was time to value or whether it was obstacles to adoption. What we looked at just before lockdown was using open banking, which is just a new take on on legacy technology, to bring that cash management offering into smaller businesses at a wider scale. One of the big points of that was really around how do we, is it even possible that we could get that market penetration, that market take-up for a cash management solution. Well, COVID-19 has given the perfect solution for that, and the perfect excuse almost, in that businesses are now working from home a lot more. So initially when COVID hit, we had an uptake in our payment services, being that a cloud-based software solution. People can log into our solution remotely. That was the first point. And then the second point was, because everyone needs to know exactly how much cash they had, the cash management solution was now front and center for every business, and needing to get a cash management solution that was affordable. So what we did at AccessPay was, the week before lockdown hit, we'd signed off that we were going to develop the cash management solution to leverage open banking. So the technology which is mainly consumer focused, and I've been a massive critic of it for businesses. I was then the biggest supporter of this new technology for businesses. So what we've been able to do over this lockdown period is really rapidly develop the cash management solution in line with open banking, and that was launched or is launched today. So even after here, I'm going to do a load of demos to make sure that everyone can see and it's out there. But yeah, so we've taken this opportunity of COVID and lockdown to really bolster our technology, our solution offering, to open it out to the mass market and just move it away from it being the high-end corporates.
Absolutely. And I know from speaking to you and to other clients and contacts who've got into the realms of open banking for lots of different reasons, for lots of different products, one of the benefits there is just a massive uptake in speed of decision making, speed of transactions. So where anything was previously paper based or manual, if you can get away from that and use those automated channels, then you massively cut down the time that it takes for people to get information, to happen.
100%, and open banking is built upon legacy technology. The payment rails underneath that have existed for years. The main, in terms of payments, is faster payments. Yep. It's been around for, I think it's almost be over 10 years now. However, the time to value for our customers is really imperative. So whilst they may have been able to do this today, and they can always log into their online banking and make payments, they can always log into their online banking and download all of the data and then put it into Excel and do a load of formulas, everything potentially fraught with risk and error. Yeah. That risk and that time that it takes to do all of those things has been removed by utilizing the technology. So the time to value in terms of how quick can somebody use this technology, it's within minutes and not days and weeks. And then what is the value behind that? Well, it's also the time saving, the efficiency, but also the increased control and security around all of that. So I think most definitely people are reaping the benefits of open banking and the wider technology. Yep.
Fantastic. So AccessPay there, I think, is a good example of using what's not brand new technology by any means, but just finding a way to integrate that into a customer offering in a way that really adds value. And I know that in terms of the products, Anthony, that you work with, Open Money and WorkLife as well, do similar by leveraging all sorts of technologies, including open banking APIs, but also AI technology, also platforming it on the cloud. Can you talk a little bit about the benefits for the customer of using those kinds of technologies in your products?
Yeah, so obviously our ambition is to really drive down the cost of financial advice for people, whilst also making it easily accessible and available for a huge number of people, far more people than who currently benefit from financial advice. So to try and do both of those things at the same time, driving down price and extending accessibility, then technology was always going to be a major driver behind us being able to do that. So that is anything from making sure that how we engage in the digital, investing in our apps, to our underlying platforms that enable us to hold lots of data very quickly, is essential. And open banking was really an extension to that. So we got our FCA regulations in 2018 when open banking came live. And what that enables us to do, and also enables our customers to do, is get a really quick, granular understanding of their financial position. So that's really good from a customer point of view, because they can start to see a lot more detail, a lot more easily around what their current finances look like. And then from our point of view, it enables us then to use that data to drive personalized advice for that particular customer, almost on a real-time basis. So helping them understand where they're spending their money, identify ways in which they can reduce their spending and increase their saving, identify ways where they can earn more money from whatever savings they've got. So we can make those really important decisions, but with much better quality of data than would normally be the case, where you'd be asking people to complete a fact find, provide copies of their bank statements, and a lot of trying to get a lot of information from a lot of sources. Open banking clearly enables us to get that information much quicker, much more effectively, and much more securely than historically. So that really, again, improves the outcome for the customer, but allows us to provide much more bespoke and personalised advice for customers. Obviously, also at a much lower cost to the customer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's another theme in terms of standardised rails of information around things like open banking and other methods, where that improves consistency, improves quality, is also delivered securely and in a way that reduces error rates and means that you can industrialise the process of that analysis in a far more structured way.
Yeah, and that's the point. Yeah, I think that's the key point, that industrialisation, the commoditisation of it is really what's key. So obviously there's a lot of upfront investment, both in terms of money and time and effort, but trying to build something that can deliver the services to a large number of people effectively relies on quality data being pumped into it. So open banking, whilst far from perfect, there's still a lot of work to be done on the quality of the open banking API. It can be pretty flaky, but that's only going to improve. And of course, it's only quite a narrow API at the moment, so it's only with regards to current accounts. So once that broadens out into other products, a broader range of financial products, which at the moment can produce that data, but still relies on a lot of the old screen scraping technologies, which is all right, but obviously not as secure as the open banking API provides. But there's only one direction of travel, so that's going to broaden, and then obviously the more products that have an API available, then again it just improves the quality of the outcome for the customer.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right in terms of direction of travel, where you see the open finance consultation from the FCA and interesting wider government as well around DCMS reports about how the open banking model is a really useful one to help individuals and businesses get empowered to own their own data and to use their data. And I think it's something that will definitely continue to expand. The FCA consultation has been put back due to impact of COVID, but I think when we look at longer term trends, perhaps when we wrap up, that's something that will certainly come down the track and will broaden out the offering from consumers to a much broader range of services.
Yeah, I think the open finance ambition is really laudable, but the task at hand is significantly greater than open banking. Yeah. Because open banking is still very narrow in terms of what it actually does.
Yeah, agreed. And I think once you bring in even broader sectors beyond finance altogether, what about retail spending? What about habits? Where you like different products and services, and can you bring all that in together? Then it does become a very, very weighty and complex problem. I was just also going to ask you about the customer advice gap survey. because I know that you ran that in 2019 and in 2020. I think I'm right in saying that was run with YouGov just before the lockdown was announced. So just interested in the themes there in terms of what you're seeing around consumer advice and how consumers are serviced by the financial services market or the fintech market, and if you've seen any changes since March in the last 6 months.
Well, when we ran the report, which was an annual report picking up from work that Citizens Advice Bureau did in 2015, and really underpinned a lot of what we do at Open Money, which basically said lots of people would benefit from getting financial advice, but too few people know where to get it or can afford it. That's basically the upshot of the report. So it creates, is of gaps that says actually the number of people who are out there who want advice against the people who can afford it or can even know where to go and get it is pretty broad. It's something like 14 million people would benefit from advice but don't know where to get it or can't afford to get it. So we did the report last year. We reran it this year. The field work was done the first couple of weeks of March. But the report produced only a few weeks ago, and it was already looking quite a precarious position. So the number of people for whom had debts that worried them, who were less than a couple of paydays away from real serious financial problems, who often ran out of cash by the end of the month or had to rely on short-term borrowing to meet bills or essentials, was growing. It was a growing number, and that was before COVID.
Yeah.
So it's not unreasonable to think that actually that position over the last 6 months, or feels like 6 years, but the last 6 months will have worsened, and people's concerns, and that's really been reflected in the work that we've been doing in that period as well. So we've had a big uptick in new customers, but also existing customers using our services. And that's probably because a combination of people have got more time on their hands. So during lockdown, they've had a time to do a lot of the things that they've previously had better things doing, and primarily that's a lot to do with finances. But secondly, it's probably also been, the concerns and job security issues have made people think, right, well, what's going to happen in the future?
Yeah.
So, we were talking just in the green room offline here that actually the real crunch of all this is probably likely to be next year when it's felt, because at the moment we're still at early stage. We've still got a lot of reliefs available out there, and the real pain, sadly, is likely to be, after Christmas, I think.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think we're still very much in the initial phase of the COVID crisis, and there's a lot still to play out. And I guess turning to Rachel in terms of how that affects fintech, there's a huge number of innovative fintech businesses already in Manchester, lots of interest in the region. We've heard from 3 great businesses already this afternoon. In terms of fintech specifically as your area of focus, what have you seen as the challenges around inward investment and the sort of issues that you've been grappling with since all this started to happen in March time?
No, absolutely. So Manchester's fintech sector is really growing. So we've got about 80 fintech companies with a base in the region, including 5 fintech unicorns. And I think the fintech sector as a whole has been quite resilient in responding to the COVID crisis, because fintech companies are by their very nature digital. So they've been able to shift their operations into the cloud, move their staff to work from home, and as we've heard from the other panelists, they've been able to, pivot their business models, create new products, and adapt quite quickly. I suppose from an inward investment perspective, this has obviously created quite a few challenges where companies don't want to make big decisions just at the moment because they want to wait and see what happens. But on the flip side of that, there have been certain areas within fintech that have seen a huge amount of growth as a result of COVID, particularly in the payment sector. So for those companies, they've had to really scale up their operations, potentially bring on new staff to respond to that customer demand. So we've definitely seen, I'd say, a steady flow of new inquiries, both from UK and from international fintechs, who are looking to access new talent, to set up operations in Manchester. I suppose partly as a result, and for some companies, partly despite COVID. And so I suppose that the biggest challenge for Midas at the moment is to show that Manchester is still open for business. There's still huge opportunities for companies who are growing and expanding, and we want to show how Manchester, and I suppose the wider ecosystem, so as well as the fintech companies, the professional services organisations and the wider supporting partners can support fintechs through what is a very challenging time at the moment.
Yeah.
And so it's great to see that we've still got that interest for companies who are growing to set up in Manchester, and we just need to continue to provide that support for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what you talk about there in terms of the interest still being there is something we see reflected from more of a commercial and corporate perspective, where across our teams that deal with financial services regulation, with data, with payments, with commercial contracts, with corporate acquisitions and private equity, there's still activity there. And in some cases, there's still very urgent activity where people can see there are genuine opportunities. But then at the same time, there are deals on hold, and there's nervousness, I think, around the sector as a whole, just reflective of the nervousness that there is in the wider economy. So I think...
No, definitely. We've definitely seen that.
And I was just going to ask you one question as well, just because it's a good opportunity to do it on a panel session. Could you define a unicorn for me, please? And just for the benefit of those attendees on the panel.
Company with a valuation... a company with a valuation over $1 billion.
Excellent. I'll tell my daughter that later on and see if she agrees with that definition, but that's very useful. Thank you. So just as we wrap up, I was going to ask a couple of more future-gazing questions to the panel. And whilst Pro Manchester has done a very good job of organising the session today, they haven't actually provided us with crystal balls, so we'll have to just do our best. In terms of what's happened with COVID-19 and with lockdown, that's triggered vast changes for financial services and for wider society. So I'm just going to ask the panel, if you could pick one change, is the one change there you think will be permanent now, and what effect will that have on your organisation? I wonder if Winston, if you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the biggest change has obviously been working from home. Sorry to the rest of the panel, I've stole it already. Perks of being here.
Jumped in there. Yeah.
But it's working from home, and from a business, businesses working from home, that means that the software that they're using has to be essentially cloud-based. It's pushed businesses, even the slower-moving businesses, into adopting new software and new technology. And I see that being a continuing theme, a running theme in the future, especially, as I say, especially because people aren't together. If you look at all the video conferencing, if you look at how we're doing this right now, this is the new norm.
Yeah.
And what that means for businesses, what it means for a business like Access Pay as well, is that we continue in our way of working, being based in the cloud, making sure that people can access from anywhere in the world. It does, of course, pose challenges, and there are other things that will pose challenges, like Brexit, but I won't get into it. I think that's the running theme and how it adjusts for us. Again, you mentioned it at the beginning, is fintechs are much more adept because we are digital first.
Yep.
It has less of an impact on us and helps the likes of myself as a product manager to speak to our customers and our prospects to understand what is it that they're focusing on next. Is it security? Is it how they make payments? Is it anything else? And then we just need to make sure we reflect our roadmap to tie in with that.
Absolutely, thank you. Yeah, you've definitely taken the low-hanging
The
fruit
obvious
to answer that question.
I'm not sorry.
Anthony or Abby or Rachel, do you have any other examples you want to mention?
I was
Sorry, go on, Rachel.
Sorry, I was going to say, I think the whole COVID-19 situation has pushed fintech into the mainstream. Suddenly, people who hadn't used fintech products before are adopting that technology. And I think fintechs themselves have proved that they, I suppose, especially in the case of the CBILS and BBILS loan, they can offer better products than the incumbent bank. So I think the biggest takeaway from COVID is moving fintechs into the mainstream and making more consumers eager and willing to adopt fintech products in the future, which will only be of benefit to the fintech sector as a whole, and will hopefully attract more companies to Manchester to benefit from that.
Fantastic. Yeah, agreed. And Abby, I think you might have been about to say something as well. I was just going to ask you a question we've had from the questions that are coming in during the session, which is, if you don't mind, if you know the answer to this, when you've pivoted your offering towards focusing on the music side of things and going down the lifestyle brand route, has that resulted in you getting a different profile of customers as a result? And is that what you were looking to achieve by doing that in the first place?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question because actually, obviously, at the back end of last year, Clydesdale and Yorkshire Bank acquired Virgin Money. So we've been through a process of 3 banks coming together under the brand Virgin Money this year. So at the start of this year, the music proposition was very much focused on a brand play, and supporting that, retaining our existing customer base, but then also using it as a proposition to look to engage with a younger demographic as well. So we're starting to see that kind of slowly move towards it, but we only kind of kicked off the music piece earlier this year.
Sure.
And obviously have a few bumps in the road on the way, but yeah, definitely it's utilising it as a proposition to engage with a new customer base.
Great stuff. Thank you. So Anthony, were you about to answer as well? Sorry, we got across you there.
Following on from what Rachel was saying, that I think hopefully one of the positives that comes out of all this will be people will become more engaged with their finances, using fintech or whatever form. Obviously, fintech will make it a lot easier for them to do that, but the actual interest and wanting to become more engaged will be a real big step forward, because I think sometimes a combination of apathy and not understanding a lot of financial products, complex products, has led to really poor outcomes for customers. So I think having more people taking more of an interest will drive better outcomes for them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And finally, I was just going to ask about anything else that's going on in the sector that maybe is independent of COVID. So things I was thinking about there, we've already talked about open banking and open finance. The EU's got a digital IDs programme that's coming down the track. Brexit briefly got mentioned there by Winston. And also, I was going to mention, and it's been asked about in the questions, the green economy and the green recovery and the importance of addressing the climate crisis and how the FS industry and fintech can play a role in that. I guess, having had that question about the green economy come through, Rachel, have you seen that reflected at all in the way in which investors are positioning themselves and the kind of conversations that you're having? Is that starting to come through as a topic?
I think it's definitely over the last couple of years, investors are more conscious about their green credentials, what they're focusing on. And obviously, one of Greater Manchester's key ambitions is to become carbon neutral by 2038. So I think it's definitely one of the key considerations for companies, and they're definitely working it into their own business plans, the focus on sustainability and things like that. So yeah, I think that's definitely something that we're going to see more of over the next few years, I think.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, I think we're quite pressed for time, so I'll wrap things up there and say thank you very much to the panellists. I hope you found that interesting and a whistle-stop tour through the banking revolution. And thank you very much to everyone for joining us.